today about death. What does death mean? Is death the end? This and much more on how to live, knowledge and experience needed to create the life you want, the best experience of life possible. And what is death? What is meaning of death, about death? Today, this is today's topic. Let's get into it. For you, life might be something that starts with birth and ends with death. The little bit of time in between that is filled with seeking for pleasure and experiencing pain in between. And alternations and a roller coaster between a pleasure and pain, fear when we anticipate pain and desire when we anticipate pleasure, and a complete mess of all sorts of emotions and thoughts sort of plaguing us. Absolutely not connected with our will. It just happens mechanically. The brain functions mechanically as part of this body-mind, and whatever happens and whatever thoughts we jump on and whatever emotions come out of it is just a complete mess, a complete roller coaster of everything. And then you might believe that this is your life that ends with death, and then you might be scared of death, you might be afraid of death, because you really haven't got a clue of what happens after death, what death itself is, what's the meaning of death, who dies, what dies. Is this something that doesn't die, or is just everything dies? Is this the end of everything? And you're so much in love with this body-mind that you're so scared of it, you don't want it to end, you want it to go on and on. Regardless that it's a mess, regardless that it's so much pain involved and so much fear and so much a roller coaster of everything, you just don't know anything else, or you think that there is nothing else and you just cling on to it. And you're scared of death and you have no idea what happens when you die. What is death? For me, life is unborn and it doesn't die. It doesn't start with birth, doesn't end with death. What is me, what I consider as myself is not this body-mind. This is just an image, a projection of the mind. Who I really am, my true nature, is eternal. It's limitless. In this cycle from birth to death, in this particular cycle, in this particular body that you appear to see, body-mind is just one of the cycles from birth to death. It all depends on how much you become aware of your real nature, of what your real nature is. It is not the body-mind. And a little tiny bit of awareness is enough to work on. So there is no death. Death occurs just to this body-mind that doesn't really exist. It's just an image, a projection of the mind. Sit with it a little bit. You are a soul. There is no death. There is no death. The only thing that dies is a body-mind that is just an image, that is just a projection of the mind. When you go beyond mind, it doesn't exist at all. In everything that comes from it, all the roller coaster of feelings, emotions, thoughts, everything, all desires, wants, the constant struggle, the constant yearning, the constant longing for something that you sort of never really find, or just for very, very short moments. It is not who you really are. It is not your real life. And you have a little tiny bit of knowing of it. Everybody has a little tiny bit, because there are lapses in this imagery that's projected from the mind. There are lapses. When you dream and everything is just absolutely real, it's a projection mostly of your unconscious mind, and it's the logic in it's a little bit different, but imagery is absolutely the same. And then you become awake, you say, it's not real, it's just a dream, but it's as real as your reality. It's the same, isn't it? And when you experience some sort of a memory that's been maybe traumatic, and you just experience it as it's happening, with all the imagery, with everything, with all the feelings that come from it, everything is just absolutely real. But then you say, oh, it's not real, it's just a memory. But it's real, isn't it? It's just an image. It's just a memory, the same as what you experience as a reality. It's just an image, it's just a memory. And a desire to keep this memory going again and again and again. But there are lapses. There are times during the day, in every day, there are times where you sort of get caught somewhere in between, when you lose yourself, what we call some sort of a trance, like. And then you come out of it and you haven't really thought of anything, you haven't been anywhere, you haven't identified with anything, but you touched your true nature, you see. This is what really is. This is the reality. This is your true nature when you're in a trance. When you're deep asleep and you lose the sense of I, of this body-mind, it doesn't exist. But you still are. You wake up and you know you were deep asleep, and it felt good. But there was no I, there was no sense of body-mind. So that's why there is no death. It is just part of the imagery of the body-mind. Your soul doesn't die, whatever you call it, a consciousness, soul, something not physical, that is becoming more and more aware of itself, aware of its true nature. And when it becomes totally aware of itself, becomes totally aware of its true nature, it doesn't need to go back into the cycle of birth and death. It can be just totally free. So death is really a liberation of the soul from the body-mind. And then depending on how high is the awareness of the soul of its true nature, then it goes back to this cycle of birth, death, or it doesn't go back. It just stays free as it is, as a pure consciousness, pure awareness, God, as we call it, God. It's the only thing that really exists, and everything else is just an image, it's just an apparition, it's just a projection of the mind. The same as when you're in a desert and you see oasis, and you come close and there is no oasis. But it was real, wasn't it? You really saw it. It's all there is. There is a projection of the mind. It's just a little ripples on this surface, or just under the surface of this huge ocean of consciousness, awareness. All there is, God. And a soul that's got its own evolution of recognizing its true nature and lifting its awareness more and more and more and more, till one day it becomes totally aware and totally free. So what you think is real is really not real. It's just an image. So think about this when you look at the screen and you see images there, and you just fall into it. For you, just for the time when you look at it, it just appears totally real. Why do you think that is? Just because that's what so-called world around you is. It's just an image. It's a projection of the mind. It's absolutely the same as when you look at the screens. That's why it's such a it's so familiar when you look at the story on any screen, and then you look at the so-called reality. It's just all just about the same. It may be just a question of one dimension more, two-dimensional or three-dimensional, but in essence, it's the same. It's all a projection. I will leave you with this for today. You can support my channel by the means that I state under the video, and I also leave a list of names under each of my video of people who, guide you in the same direction of self-recognition, who have beautiful YouTube channels and videos that I do recommend too. Stay well. Dwell on there is no death. And I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.